This is the Mercedes-Benz CLE, and while the letters in its name might seem familiar, it's actually a brand new addition to the Mercedes lineup. And if you ask me, it's also quite an interesting one. According to Mercedes, the CLE was shaped by desire. C-Class Coupe customers wanted more space, and E-Class Coupe customers wanted something more sporty. So they got rid of both those cars and created this to suit everyone. If you think of the L in CLE as a slash, then you're on the right path. It's basically a C/E coupe with Mercedes merging the best bits of both cars into one. It's available as both a two-door coupe, this thing, and as a convertible. And there's definitely a lot of consolidation going on here. Underneath, the CLE is based on the same platform as you get on the C-Class and E-Class, but size-wise, it has more in comparison with the E-Class than the C. It's actually the same width and 15 millimeters longer than the E-Class Coupe, with a wheelbase that sits somewhere in between those two cars. Design-wise, it's quite an attractive car. It's going to go head-to-head with the likes of the Audi A5 and the BMW 4 Series. I might prefer the look of the 4 Series personally, but I might be in a minority. Let me know in the comments down below. But you can't fault this car for design. It's really, really striking. Long bonnet, big old bulges up top, and then what Mercedes call the shark nose. And by that, they mean it's got this A-shaped grille that's angled slightly backwards like the nose of a shark. No teeth on this one, but in this particular spec, you get hundreds of these three-pointed stars. The headlights are quite predatory in nature as well, very sharkish in its design. If you look closely, it's got these blue waves that you really, really see when you stand up and look downwards into the lens. It's also got two nodules instead of the single nodule you get on the C-Class, indicating this is much more closely related to an E. Okay, down the side, very distinctive looking car. The first thing I notice are the wheels. It's got these special aerodynamic 20-inch wheels. I'm not the world's biggest fan of these in terms of their design, but I get why they're there. They reduce the amount of drag this car creates and therefore the amount of CO2 it puts out and increases your fuel economy. Now, down here, you get these very distinctive creases on the front wheel arch, and then that bleeds away to a smooth door. And then towards the rear, another sharp crease, just really helping those wheel arches to look a bit more pronounced and distinctive. It isn't a pillarless coupe. There is a B pillar here, but still good looking. And like all coupes, it's got a little seatbelt helper just to pass you that seatbelt whenever you sit down. I also quite like the greenhouse on this as well, with this distinctive little kink up at the back and the panoramic glass sunroof on top. Now, the back end, probably my favorite angle on this car by far, not because it's perfect, because there are pros and cons. Let's start with the good stuff. First of all, these lights are gorgeous. Not the same as you get on the E-Class Saloon, which has the distinctive star-shaped design, but this just suits the sleek character of the CLE a lot more. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a complete light bar across the back. There's a break in the middle. You just have this little lens, which almost feels a bit like they didn't have enough budget to make the two connect. Bit of a cop-out, maybe, but kind of gets worse. You get a fake diffuser down here, which does absolutely nothing. And then it gets even worse because you get fake vents at the side. Slightly forgivable, but what I don't think is that forgivable are these enormous tailpipe housings. It does have two individual exhaust pipes underneath, but they don't come through these frames. What is the point in developing such a nice looking and elaborate exhaust pipe housing and then having nothing come out of it? Absolutely pointless. Right, the boot opens electrically and it gives you 450 litres of space. That's actually about 5 litres more than you get in the E-Class Saloon. The opening is quite small. It's not a hatchback, but there's enough room in there for 3 golf clubs, bags, something. I don't play golf, I don't know, but it's big. Right. Let's go check out the inside. Welcome to the interior of the new CLE. As you'll see, it's got a lot in common with the C-Class interior. Okay, the E-Class is slightly more premium, but Mercedes wanted a bit of a sporty vibe for the CLE, and I think the C-Class interior kind of ticks that box really nicely. It's a good looking cabin, this thing. It's available in a variety of finishes. This one in particular comes with this slightly weird glossy plastic with a houndstooth style design. You get some chrome, and up here on the dashboard also some leather with some contrasting stitching. The seats are really nice as well. They've been designed specifically for the CLE and they look pretty tremendous. I like the way the headrests adjust backwards and forwards. More on those in just a second, but the color is a particular highlight of mine. I love this tan color, and it matches the inserts in the doors really well. And that's offset really nicely against the chrome in the armrest, and of course the Burmester stereo system, which is an option in this car. Back to the headrest now. If you get the optional Burmester sound system, they actually come with a pair of speakers built into the headrest, which in theory will improve the sound quality in this car because they're that much closer to your ears. I've got the optional Burmester sound system in this car, but I can't hear or see any speakers in these headrests, so I'm gonna have some very strong words with Mercedes to try and clear up exactly what's going on there. As for the technology in the car, you got an 11-inch screen for the driver, a very big head-up display, so big it's almost to the point of being distracting, but you can adjust it and turn it off. And then a large 12-inch screen for your infotainment. On the whole, they look beautiful and work really well. You can even customize the look and feel of the driver display from sport to classic to navigation to assistance, and get it looking and feeling exactly how you like. And then this big infotainment display is angled slightly towards the driver to make it easier to see. Now, this is from the C-Class, but it actually has the software from the E-Class. In other words, it has extra functionality and a slightly different look and feel. I'll show you what I mean by that. Some of the menus are typical Mercedes, but when you go into the home menu, it gives you this Android layer, which look a bit like what you get on a mobile phone, and it makes it very easy to read and looks really cool. The only downside is that it doesn't look very consistent across the different menus in this car. For example, on some of the menus, it's typical Mercedes, but then on the main menu, it kind of looks like you've got an Android or an iOS device, which to me is lacking in a bit of consistency. But the cool thing is it's got a lot of functionality in this thing. So let me scroll through some of the apps in here. You got Pocket Casts, video streaming, TikTok, you got Zoom built into this, Angry Birds. I don't actually see a video conferencing camera in this car. There is one in the E-Class, but Mercedes tells me that you will get the option of a video camera so you can do teleconferencing in your GLC. In your, whatever this is called.
CLE.
In your CLE. There's a ton more I could talk about on the interior of whatever this is, including the rear, which is more spacious than before thanks to the extra wheelbase, giving more legroom and headroom than a regular C Coupe, but I'm sure you get the idea. So, let's go drive it. We all want our coupes to be interesting, and the CLE is definitely that. It comes with a range of engines. There's a inline 4-cylinder diesel, if you're that way inclined, a bunch of 4-cylinder petrols, 2-litre turbocharged, and then there's the big dog, a 2.9-litre turbocharged inline 6 that makes 380 horsepower and 500 newton meters of torque. And it's quite quick, you know, 0 to 62 in 4.4 seconds and 155 miles an hour flat out. So it'll keep up with an entry-level Porsche. Now, it's a very effective engine, and part of the reason is that it uses an integrated starter generator, basically a little electric motor that can add an extra 200 newton meters of torque, not on top of the 500 that the engine already makes, but it does fill in those gaps where the engine isn't quite making peak torque. So when you accelerate, turbo lag is kept to a minimum. The gearbox is that familiar 9-speed Mercedes automatic, 9 gears. It's quite a lot, isn't it? Now, most of them are pretty much dedicated to efficiency. If you're driving enthusiastically, you're mostly going to be using 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's where you might want to take advantage of the paddle shifters behind the steering wheel. It's not the most quick or responsive gearbox in the world, but it's just about responsive enough for you to enjoy rifling up and down the box with the paddles on these twisty corners. If you can't be bothered, of course, you can just leave it in automatic and it sorts out everything for you with a minimum of fuss, I would say. Now, before we talk about what it's like to drive this car quickly, let's talk about what it's like as a daily. It's very comfortable. I love the seats in this car. They look good, they feel good, they're heated, they're cooled. They also have a massaging feature with a bunch of different programs, and they have a seat kinematics program, which basically means that they adjust your back and your bum in minute ways as you drive along, which means that you're never sat in the same position over a long journey. It's constantly shuffling your body around to help keep that blood flowing. There are 3 suspension options in the CLE, which is lowered by 15mm over the saloons. There's the comfort suspension, which does what it says on the tin, the optional sport suspension, which stiffens things up and offers more direct steering, and then there's a third option, dynamic body control. That is essentially adaptive suspension, which can adjust the damping on each wheel individually to give you the best of both worlds on demand. When you buy that suspension, you also get rear wheel steering, which is a bit of a game changer in this car. So not only does it make it feel a bit more responsive entering the corners, it also reduces the turning circle by about 50 centimeters. This car has a better turning circle than both the E-Class and C-Class Coupes, which means in town it's very maneuverable, and that makes it a really good daily for anyone who lives in a city. A big part of the driving experience is the technology, much of which I mentioned earlier. One of the coolest new additions is a routines function, where you can tell the car to do certain things under certain conditions, like opening the windows and sunroof below a specific speed, or playing a particular type of music if you drive fast. It also has self-driving features like lane keep assist and adaptive cruise control, and an update to the Hey Mercedes voice recognition system that doesn't require you to say the Hey Mercedes keyword, although I didn't have much luck with that. I'm cold. I'm hot. What's the weather like? Navigate home. Hello? I just want to revisit that Burmester sound system as well. I had a word with Mercedes. I called them up. I said, look, I can't see any speakers in these headrests. They say, that's fine, you can't see them, they're hidden away. But the problem is, I can't hear any sound coming out of these headrests either. They said to me, they will work if you play music enabled with Dolby Atmos. So I fired up Apple Music, I played some Dolby Atmos music. I still can't hear any sound from these speakers. Don't get me wrong, the sound system is incredible anyway, one of the best you'll hear in a car. It's the kind of sound system where you want to go for a drive just to hear it, but I am a bit disappointed that I can't hear anything coming from the headrests. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt on this one. Maybe it's just this particular car, but next time, make the speakers work. Come on. When you're not messing around with the technology, it's reassuring to know that the CLE does acquit itself fairly well when driven hard. I say fairly well because it's not the most involving car to drive. It's more of a GT than a sports car. And I say that because in the corners, it doesn't inspire as much confidence as I'd like. Part of the reason for that, I would say, are these Continental Eco Contact tires, which don't give you the most grip in the bends. I've encountered a fair bit of understeer whenever you're pushing hard, particularly when it's a bit damp underfoot, and so it doesn't inspire total confidence in the corners. The all-wheel drive system doesn't make it feel particularly dynamic, I would say, but the driving position is good, there's decent steering feel, and there's a lot of traction on the exit. The only issue is you will get left for dead by pretty much any half-decent hot hatch. Is it good value for money? Prices will start from £50,000 for entry-level cars, rising to around £70,000 for the fastest CLE 450. A BMW 430i, for reference, is available for around £43,000 to £58,000. So what's my verdict on the CLE? On the whole, I think it's pretty good actually. I mean, it's not buzzing and fizzing with driver involvement. It's not a sports car. It's definitely more of a GT with a good turn of pace, particularly in 450 guys. Mercedes know that their C-Class customers wanted something a bit more spacious and upmarket, and their E-Class customers wanted something a bit more sporty, and they've delivered exactly that to both those demographics. And for that, you can't really fault it. I think it's a very well executed car, and on the whole, I'm pretty glad it exists. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget, Auto Trader give away an electric car every single month. The prize this month is a brand new Tesla Model Y, and we also have a bonus prize. This is a Rally Motors electric bike. It could be yours. Enter now. The details are down below.